Switching to T-Mobile Home Internet is one of the best. T-Cell's new 5G Residence Broadband Gateway/Wi-Fi router is used for one huge purpose: it's a substitute for the cable monopolies that dominate most main markets in America. Whether or not it's a higher choice than cable is, sadly, a query we are able to objectively reply, for two causes. First, what T-Cell formally calls its T-Cell Excessive Pace Web Gateway, 5G 2112 watts A, is 5G, and the standard and bandwidth of the Wi-Fi sign you obtain in your house might be depending on any variety of elements, essentially the most important of which would be the gateway's distance out of your nearest 5G cell tower. You'll additionally have to stability what we discovered in opposition to what your individual, competing broadband ISP delivers. Luckily, T-Cell's plan providing is versatile sufficient that you would be able to in all probability create your individual 1-month trial. In my case, cable nonetheless regrettably gives the most suitable choice for my household of 4, dwelling in a home stuffed with streaming media units and gaming laptops. T-Cell's 5G router provided sufficient bandwidth for about half of my household, however not fairly sufficient for all 4 of us and our mini units. Specs and setup. T-Cell's router plan is all-inclusive. After confirming your eligibility, for $50 per 30 days, T-Cell will send you a pre-configured router with an activated SIM inserted. The $50 per month truly features a $10 per month auto-pay credit score, so the precise value is $60 per month. There's no annual contract, both. For those who resolve the service isn't for you, you possibly can merely name T-Cell, cancel, and the corporate will ship you a pay-as-you-go label to field up and return the 5G 2112 watts A hardware. T-Cell's pricing is already on par or decreased than even the most affordable cable contracts, and T-Cell guarantees limitless web with no knowledge caps or throttling in addition. Nonetheless, T-Cell says that the service is not meant for unattended use, so don't plan to obtain Linux distributions by way of BitTorrent. Due to its protection map, T-Cell is aware of if your house might be shut sufficient to a cell tower to obtain a passable sign. For those who are feeling actually nerdy, nevertheless, you possibly can go to a website like cellmapper.net and uncover simply how shut the closest cell tower is, and what Wi-Fi bands these towers use. Bodily, T-Cell's router jogs my memory of the Harman Kardon Invoke, a now discontinued cylindrical sensible speaker, that, like T-Cell's router, included a shade show on the high. It measures 8.5 inches excessive by 4.75 inches in diameter, and is powered by a wall wart-like plug with a conveniently prolonged 6-foot twine. That's helpful, as you'll need to place the gateway as near an out-of-doors wall or window as potential to obtain the utmost sign accessible. Inside is a Wi-Fi 6, 802.11x, radio with 4 antennas to create the Wi-Fi community your shopper units will hook up with. You can too faucet its twin gigabit Ethernet ports for wired community connections. T-Cell's gateway does have some quirks. There's a USB-C port, a UPS port for an uninterruptible energy provide, and an RJ11 phone jack on the again of the router. However, none of them are purposeful, at the very least so far as I may inform. I attempted plugging a USB energy provide in, however that didn't work. I didn't have a suitable UPS to check. The 5G 2112 watts does have an inner battery, which permits the gateway for use cable-free, properly, form of. Organizing the router requires first turning it on, letting it boot up, after which strolling it round the home or condominium to search out one of the best sign. The LCD display on high communicates this sign info in actual time, although it's going to flip off after a number of seconds except you faucet it awake. You can too swipe by a number of screens, which inform you the variety of units related, any service messages from T-Cell, and extra. Right, here's one other quirk: whereas on battery, neither the Ethernet nor the Wi-Fi connections can be utilized. That's odd, since as I drove round my neighborhood with the 5G 2112 watts a gateway to verify sign energy, the battery degree solely dropped by a proportion level or two. That means that it ought to realistically supply web connectivity in case of an influence outage. That's merely not the case. You may also suppose that Wi-Fi gateway may very well be arranged wherever, in contrast to a wired cable gateway that may solely be arranged close to the coaxial cable's entry to the home. Sadly not. Usually, the perfect location might be close to a window, one which isn't partially blocked by a mesh display. And placement does matter, greater than you would possibly suppose. Your Wi-Fi community should even be organized to take the gateway's location under consideration. Whereas the 5G 2112 watts a gateway reported that my home is bathed in a week, 2 out of 5 bars, sign all through, I used to be solely in a position to set up a good, 3 out of 5 bars, sign in a nook of my son's room, subsequent to his window. And that, proper in the course of his Legos, grew to become my new Wi-Fi gateway location. Efficiency and on a regular basis use. I used T-Cell's 5G 2112 watts a gateway for about 3 weeks, wirelessly connecting leisure units just like the Xbox Sport Console, plus my son's pill and PC. Given how a lot they're in use throughout summer season trip, I figured that they might be a superb take a look at of whether or not the T-Cell sign remained fixed. The sign dropped 3 times in that interval, in response to my youngsters, often only a few seconds, however as soon as for a bit longer. I additionally examined the velocity, in fact. With all units disconnected, speeds ranged from a most of 180 megabits per second to about 120 megabits per second downstream, once more, on what T-Cell's app thought of to be a good sign, or 3 out of 5 bars. Upstream speeds, which matter in case you're importing video to YouTube or backing up information or pictures to the cloud, reached just below 50 megabits per second, which remains to be a lot quicker than the 14 megabits per second my cable supplier, Comcast, gives, with its 400 megabits per second service plan. These exams have been carried out with a Wi-Fi shopper near the router, with no different units related to the gateway. My youngsters actually didn't report any points whereas gaming or chatting with their pals by way of Zoom or FB Messenger, and so they have been in a position to obtain sport updates usually. I additionally streamed 4K/60 FPS video from YouTube without issues. Lastly, I reran my video stream take a look at whereas concurrently performing a velocity take a look at and noticed obtained speeds of 111 megabits per second, this whereas home Windows updates have been wirelessly downloaded to a distinct PC. The video stream dropped 102 frames out of 18,000, nothing noticeable. Google's Stadia gaming service additionally reported a connection of 59 megabits per second, once more, whereas streaming video, and accepted the connection as a candidate for the service, although I didn't attempt it. It's price noting that my T-Cell gateway was not related to 5G. The T-Cell app's extra tab will present you which of them frequency band your machine connects to, which was usually band 4, defined by T-Mobile as a 4G LTE band. A mobile sign app on my 5G capable T-Cell phone additionally confirmed that the telephone, not the router, often related to bands 2, 66, or 71, once more, all 4G LTE bands. T-Cell does function 5G companies on cell towers aligned alongside base interstates, however that tower was on the opposite aspect of city, and I doubt that the router ever related to it. There's no means of forcing the router to make use of a specific LTE or 5G band, both. The router side of T-Cell's gateway works properly, inside purpose. In my home, a split level tucked right into a hill, Wi-Fi alerts are likely to get misplaced within the maze of partitions, flooring, and ceilings. My conventional ISP gateway constructed into the basement struggles to push sign all through the house without repeaters. I used to be considerably shocked to see my telephone's sign app report a 65 megabits per second Wi-Fi hyperlink from the router alone, however my pocketbook PC struggled to attach. I had much better luck connecting T-Cell's gateway to a discrete mesh router. Coincidentally, I additionally acquired VLO's ultra-low-cost mesh networking system for analysis, so I merely related the tiny little mesh nodes around my home. That was an efficient, cheap complement to what T-Cell provided, blanketing my residence with Wi-Fi protection. T-Cell's Wi-Fi companies and administration instruments, nevertheless, are decidedly missing. Whereas T-Cell does a pleasant job of telling you which of them units are related, You'll end up looking by the app's UI to both disconnect every machine individually, or else schedule a time to show them off. I additionally couldn't discover any choices both within the app or internet interface to create a visitor community, which is solely desk stakes for residents networking today. Lastly, I couldn't hook up with my workplace VPN, Global Protect, by way of the T-Cell router. This bug, at the very least, is well documented and attributed to an IPv6 configuration situation. Whereas I used to be in a position to join by adjusting some networking parameters on my PC, a longer-term repair entails rolling again the router's firmware. The router additionally doesn't appear to work with Hulu Plus Live TV, in response to T-Cell's customer support boards. Who ought to join T-Cell's residence web service? I approached my hands-on with the T-Cell Excessive Pace Web Gateway, 5G 2112 watts A, from what now's a really well-timed perspective, breaking the stranglehold cable suppliers have on American shoppers. The Biden administration is already taking aim at broadband monopolies, however it will likely be as much as the FCC to enact change. From my expertise, I can't say what the complete potential of T-Cell Gateway could also be. I think about there are a few locations the place 5G is offered, however cable isn't. For now, the efficiency benefit in all probability lies with cable broadband, or the even harder to get fiber broadband service. Of us dwelling in rural areas, in the meantime, in all probability receive it have any extra of an opportunity to get 5G broadband than they do cable broadband or fiber, leaving them to the mercy of DSL or satellite TV for PC service suppliers or, in the event that they're fortunate, and reasonably priced, high-performing WISP, Wi-Fi web service supplier. Nonetheless, not everybody wants ultra-fast broadband. For those who are a small family that streams video, checks email, and downloads home Windows updates within the background, T-Cell's router is totally price trying out. Most broadband connections can already accommodate these wants, and high-speed broadband, better than 200 megabits per second, is extra of a requirement for bigger households with a number of lively streaming units or laptops in use. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe. Don't forget to share.